So to continue, just I want to finish by what happens now, okay? Because in fact, you have to know that whatever the techniques we have developed before for making some transgenic plant, there is always a question where the transgene will be able to be inserted in the plant genome. Because there is something very obvious in plants. There is not possibility of recombination. It's quite difficult that it is impossible. For example, you can't provoke, okay, recombination at a specific site in the genome. So it is not the case, for example, in yeast or in different other type of organisms. Also in mammalian cells, you can make some recombination that could permit to target a specific site in which you want to insert, okay, your transgene, whatever the nature of your transgene. And with Agrobacterium, even if it's a very nice system, useful system, Agrobacterium introduce, okay, the tDNA without any previous idea of where, okay, it could be inserted in the, in the genome. And this can be a problem. In particular, you know that GMO are a question of discord because we are always afraid by the idea that we can disrupt specific gene by insertion of another one that could have some other consequence, secondary consequence, and so on and so on. So the idea is, can we manage, when we want to make some genome editing, the localization of the transgene, okay, in the genome, for example, in a region in which there is not essential genes, and also in a region where there is a high amount of transcription too. Because if you insert some gene in one part of the genome that it is not submitted to high transcription level, you couldn't see nothing at the end. So the idea was how we can manage that. And in fact, this is what happened with several other techniques. The most older one use some natural nuclease or artificial nuclease that have been generated by us to do this type of system. But now the system that it is more used for that, it is the CRISPR-Cas9. So I wanted to conclude at least on this technique, but because it is one of the most developed at this moment. Okay. So just some words concerning the previous nice also support we had to do this type of modification of DNA, including meganuclease, zinc finger nuclease, or transcription activator like effector nuclease, named ZFN or TALENs. Okay, and the last one will be what we want. So this technology use different methods to introduce a double-strand break, okay, of DNA. This is always the case, okay. And some of this system use natural nuclease. Some of these systems can be also supported by artificial nuclease that can be produced to target specific position in the genomes. So they are linked with all the GMO techniques that have been already well explained over the world. So just to have some idea of what it is, meganuclease is are specific nucleases that are found naturally in plants. They are very big, so they cover a large site of binding, okay, on the DNA. Zinc finger nuclease are nuclease. The nuclease is a fork one, and also here this nuclease is added with a specific sequence that are able to recognize specific site in the DNA sequence. Talents are the same things as zinc finger nuclease, but this zone of that is able to recognize the site on DNA are not with a zinc, but with other type of molecule, and they are bigger. And you can manage in both of these type, and particularly in talents, you can manage this part of the enzyme to recognize different sites. This is why it was a way to orient the cut of the DNA and the integration of a mutation, for example, in this case. CRISPR-Cas9 is completely different. Both of all have the only aim is to disrupt the double strand of the DNA. And in each case, the fact to generate this type of modification directly stimulated the answer of the plant cell that have been submitted to this to repair, okay, this modification. And there is two type of answer in a plant cell. What it is called non-homology and joining means that you have to relink, okay, the part of the two pieces of DNA, but this link could be added with a loss of some nucleotide, and so you can have a modification of the DNA at this place. And the other type of reparation that can be stimulated after this event, it is called homology-directed repair. And this is what it is more interesting, because at this moment, the reparation can also include a new part, okay, of DNA. So you can have addition of new genes, for example, in this system. It is in this case that you have a real editing, because you can add, okay, for example, a sequence of a new genes in the DNA at one point you have chosen before. So this is what have been developed before. So yes, this was a pre-CRISPR-Cas9 area. There is two period. We are now in a modern one with CRISPR-Cas9, but in some case, when you haven't CRISPR-Cas9 efficient system completely adapt on some plant, in particular in medicinal plant, we can also continue to use the other type of system that have shown efficiency. So one slide for each. You see here, these meganucleases have no particularity. The idea was at one moment they have identified several hundred of these enzymes, and there was a collection of these enzymes, and they were chosen due to their ability to recognize this type of site or this type of site. So by this way, you can also modify the sequence of your mega nuclease in order to target a specific site of DNA that could be in interaction with this particular molecule. So there were lots of artificial meganucleases that have been artificially built, okay, to produce several possibilities to fix at different points the DNA. So this was quite interesting. And when the mega nuclease link the DNA, they cut the DNA, and automatically or the second one repair system could be stimulated. ZFN are more complex, because you can see here there is the nuclease. It's a smaller one, not a bigger one. It's a smaller one. And this nuclease, there is two here because they are in tandem. This nuclease is linked with this specific sequence, then zinc finger, because they are they can be clip on the DNA. There is not a so long sequence of these zinc fingers, but they are very specific of a DNA site. So also here, these endonucleases were quite efficient. And what it was interesting, this part of the nucleus could be modified. The zinc fingers, could be modified, and by this way you may target different sites, of the DNA. So they have been for a long time adapt to the gene targeted we wanted to silence it, for example. There is only 3 base pair sequence by each zinc finger. So you see it's not a very long sequence. As it is not a long sequence, it could be less specific. So this why they have transferred this technology to another type of nuclease named TALENs. It is exactly the same principle. You have always a nuclease. This is a fork one. But here, the system that is able to recognize DNA, the enzymes, okay, the protein that are able to recognize are longer. Okay, they have named TAL effectors, and by this way, this system is largely more specific for one specific target sequence than for all the genomes. It was more precise. And as you can see, if the nuclease is also the same, we can act directly with the part that permits to target a specific position in the genome that could be disrupted, okay, by the nuclease activity. So in this case also, a large collection of TALENs nuclease have been generated. And in laboratories, when you wanted to cut specifically a gene, you check all the sequence of this gene. You find a sequence that is quite unique to the gene and not common with other gene in the genome. It's always the same question, okay, as we have asked before. And after you design completely these new TALENs, mega nuclease, and you can develop after a specific silencing of gene, okay, with this homemade, in fact, mega nuclease. So it was quite efficient. There is a lot of paper mentioning different nice work, very nice work, using this type of techniques to to characterize some genes that are involved in specialized metabolism. Here are a small table showing you different well works that have been published. As you see here until 2018. Because at this moment, 2018, 2019, we have completely a shift on CRISPR-Cas9 systems. But you see, it's not so long, 3 or 4 years ago, and the job was very, very, very nice. You can see here that the technique that have been used, okay, omega nuclease or RNA that have been also well used for that. Here are the plant species. All of them are considered as medicinal plants, and the purpose was every time to modulate the metabolic pathway. Okay. So I just want to share with you some things concerning this. Oh no, I haven't put this example. Sorry. We will see that after. So what I want to discuss now is the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. It is also a natural one. We have not invited these two. It's based on the observation, this time not in plant cells, not in virus, but in bacteria. In bacteria, there is a natural possibility for bacteria to answer when they are, in particular, attacked by bacteriophage. Okay, that it is the equivalent of virus for us, for example. So they have also very nice and simple systems, okay, to avoid all this disease, okay, to survive to this attack. And in fact, this have been well, okay, characterized by 2 women that have also received a Nobel Prize for this discovery. It was not so far 2020, okay, but they have found the real mechanisms in the bacteria. But also, what it is why they have received this Nobel Prize, they have anticipated how we can manage a new methodology completely controlled by us to do exactly the same as the bacteria do, but in a eukaryotic cell, not in a prokaryotic cell unique, in a unique prokaryotic cell. So the idea is that, in fact, there is a specific proteins, a Cas, that is a nuclease, okay, because the idea is just always to cut the DNA. So you need to have a DNA endonuclease activity. It is the Cas enzymes. And this enzyme is able to be linked to oligonucleotide sequence. This oligonucleotide is an RNA, so it's a single-strand RNA molecule that share two parts. The first one is what it is called scaffold. The scaffold is a common part of the RNA that is able to be linked to the Cas protein, because the catalytic site, okay, of the Cas9 is completely close to this particular structure. And you see here, to this structure is added what it is called a spacer, that it is a variable sequence of RNA that correspond to the gene you want to target. Okay. And this is what it is called a guide RNA that is able to interact with this Cas9, okay, protein. And all of this complex will be able to act as a nuclease, and it is what it is called CRISPR-Cas9, okay? There is not only one Cas protein. The most used is Cas9. This is why you see always a CRISPR-Cas9 system. But there is a lots of other type of Cas, for example, that are able to link with other type of nucleic acid. For example, Cas12 is also able to fix DNA, but also double strand. But also you may have Cas15 or Cas19. No, 14, sorry, that are able also to distinguish other type of DNA or RNA molecules. Okay. And what happens, how it functions, it's quite easy. When you have this production, okay, of a guide RNA, it is exactly what you can produce artificially. You need to construct a gene, artificial sequence of DNA that will be transcribed in this type of RNA guide. Okay, so this could be completely your own made RNA with the specific here sequence of the spacer that correspond to the gene you want to cut. So you have produced this, you have transformed cells in order this cells is able to produce this artificial guided RNA, okay? And when it is produced in the cell, this guided RNA is able to be linked to a specific Cas protein. You have also transformed the plants to produce the corresponding Cas protein. So it means that you have to prepare a little bit your plant cells to produce both of the two elements. So when it is efficient, both of them are produced in the plant cell and they are able to be linked as it is, for example, in the bacteria at the origin. After, when these have been produced, it can be interact with the genome. So it enter in the nucleus, and after in the nucleus, this system is going to check all the genome, and at what moment a part of this sequence could be could recognize the same sequence in the genome. At this moment, it stops. And the double strand of the DNA is completely open, okay? And at this moment, you small sequence hybrid with the complementary sequence of of the genome, and this activates the endonuclease, the Cas9, that is able to cut exactly at one point you have a design, okay, in your spacer. So by this way, you are sure that you are able to cut exactly when you want and where you want, okay, in the genome. If the sequence is not too long, means that you may have a unique one in the genome. So it could be very precise. And what happened after this, okay, stimulate all the repair system, the natural repair system, okay, of your cells. So in this case, mainly it could be the non-homology system repair that it is stimulated, but sometimes you want the homology system repair to be stimulated because you want to insert, for example, a piece of a gene or a gene inside. So there is other construction, but here are the main, okay, the main workflow naturally occurring in the cell when you have produced these two type of molecule in the plant cell. Is it? I have tried to make it really easy. Is it okay for you? The principle is the main thing you have to understand. Because by this way, it's quite now really extraordinary what we can do with this type of system to precisely, okay, insert or modify the gene at one point we want. So by this way, we avoid completely the discussion of the hazard of insertion, okay, of these different mutation in a genome managed, for example, by Agrobacterium. So here are the two type of answer that can be induced, or non-homology sequence repair, or here you can have an external sequence of DNA that could be added, okay, during the reparation system. So what we can do, what is the workflow? Okay, the workflow usually designed in a lab to apply this type of methodology is that you have to design the guide RNA, obviously, because this is the only way to target a specific genes. After that, you have to construct a specific cassette, okay, in which you have the sequence of the Cas9, you have the sequence of your guide RNA. This cassette is included, for example, in a plasmid, and you have to transform a plant cell, okay, with this construction in order to have production of both parts of the system in the plant cell. You had every time, and in particular when it is applied to plant cells, you have to add also a selection marker, a selection gene, in order to screen at each time which are the cells transformed or not. Okay, so it is always the case. So when you have this construct, you have to make some plant cell transformation. So you can do that on unique single cells that are cultivated in vitro, but you can do that also on a leaf, for example, as we have seen for the technology. So it can be made directly by electroporation, for example, quite fast and quite efficient too. But you can also add here a left and a right border and use Agrobacterium to do this type also of transformation. Okay. And when you have transformed a cell, you have to regenerate a plant, a transgenic plant. So it's quite long at this moment. So you need to manage all the in vitro culture step in order to have you last in vitro transformed cells. And after you have to acclimate these plants in order to have them, okay, in your greenhouse if you have. And at this moment, this plant have insert, okay, this construction that will be able to produce some Cas and some guide RNA. Okay. After that, what happens? Usually we put all this construction under the control of a promoter that can be stimulated. The idea is to have a complete the complete control of production of all the system. It's not necessary that this system could be constitutive. We just want to manage when we want to activate it. So after having produced this construction, you stimulate the promoter, Cas and guide RNA are produced, so you can have production of the complex that is able, to find in the genome the site. Here I have formalized the site on the same chromosome, but it can be also on another one. It depends, it's just an example. And at this moment, this complex, Cas9 and the guide RNA, is able to recognize the target site and to cut it, and to stimulate all the repair system that could lead or to have a deletion of a part of this gene, or to have a mutation or an introduction of exogenous DNA sequence that obviously have a silenced effect of the targeted genes. So by this way, you can be sure that you have no effect of this system in another place, on the genome of the plant. It is really precise on this site in particular. And after that, you have to screen all the transgenic plants for the different events, and what are the traditional screen we can develop. It can be some molecular one. For example, as you have put this selection marker, you can make some PCR in order to see if this marker is included or not. It means that you have well included this construction in the plant cell nucleus. You make some specific assay, enzymatic assay also, to see if the endonuclease is able to function or not. You can have also some sequencing strategy, because as you know exactly where you have to include this modification, you can also, after having stimulated the system, you can isolate this part of DNA and sequence this part of DNA in order to see what type of mutation or modification have been done on your gene, in order to be sure that it is disrupted, And you can also, it's not, you can do all of this type of screening, you see, but usually you do both sequencing of this part of the genome, and also metabolomic analysis to see the impact of this modification to the production of specific metabolic, depending of the pathway you have targeted. So you see, all of the technique we have already seen that is useful for several things can be used combined with this application of CRISPR-Cas9. So theoretically, it's quite easy to do. It's not so easy in the real life, because not all the plants are so easy to transform. Whatever the transcript you want to introduce, the transformation of a plant is plant dependent. There is a lot of data are quite recalcitrant to be easily transformed. It was for a long time the case of Catharanthus roseus. So it was quite complex to have this type of approaches with this Catharanthus roseus. Only cells were able to be transformed, but not the plants. So and it was difficult to regenerate a plant with transformed cells aussi. And there is lots of other examples of medicinal plants that are in this case. So it was not so easy every time. And what was also the advantage of the system, because it is one of the main points of the discussion when you create some GMO organisms, is that you have in the genome new selective gene that can modify the sensitivity of the transgenic plant to antibiotic, for example. So what it is interesting is that when you do this type of modification, only one of the allele, is concerned by this modification, not the 2-1. So means that after, if you make an auto fertilization of the plant, you can generate some plants that avoid this construction. So means you have done the modification of the chromosome, but after, with auto-fertilization, you eliminate, okay, the construction, the initial construction you have introduced to have a CRISPR-Cas9 activity. So means that the final organisms is not considered as well as a GMO, okay? This is why it is always in discussion in our government. Do the plants that are produced by this way need to be considered as a GMO or not? Because if it is a GMO, there is several rules over the world. For example, in Europe, it's completely forbidden to cultivate GMO for personal consumption, only for experimental objective. I don't know here. I think you can. It's the same. It's the same now. There is an increasing regulation. So this is why it is important now to qualify this type of organisms modified by this type of technology. So there is a lot of discussion. They have not found the solution until now, at least in Europe. I don't know here. Do they have I suppose the same discussion too? And do they have say yes or no? Not yet. Still. They are still in discussion. Okay, so it's always okay. So you may have your own opinion. This is important because now you know lots of things. It's important to be conscious of what it is. Danger are not the same as danger. It's not a question of danger, but secondary effect will be not the same in this case than with plants that have been transformed, for example, with agrobacterium. Because in the case, you know, where you can eliminate all the system that have been introduced at the beginning for making this modification. And also you have a completely orientated where you have introduced, okay, this modification. So this could be very interesting for the future. In particular, if we want to modify the plant to have a better property, for example, crops are very interested to be modified by this way in order to enhance, for example, accumulation of primary metabolite, okay, in seeds, for example, in order to have a better quality of seed, maize, in wheat, and in different other cereals. But for medicinal plants, it's a real challenge because it could be also a way to induce a continuously production of secondary metabolites, whatever the condition in which the plants could be cultivated. Because what we know is that, in fact, if you have some field of medicinal plant, at the end of the season, the amount of the metabolic of interest depend of the environmental condition that was during their growth. So depend of the season of the year, you can't have exactly the same amount, okay, of the final molecule that it is the final one you want to purify to make your medicines. So by this way, it will be a possibility to more regulate, okay, the production of specific metabolites, whatever the condition around the plant during their growth. So it is interesting to have an idea of how this organism will be considered in the next future for the next exploitation of them. Here are the advantages. I say to you, there is a few target sequence, so there are no. It's quite precise. It is easy to design for production of guide RNA because you have just to adjust the spacer, okay, sequence. You can make some knock out mutants for desired genes. It can be made 3 or 2 or more than 5 targets at the same time. So just one event of transformation by agrobacterium to introduce with the same Cas9 different wide RNA sequence. So you may target in one shot, okay, different specific gene, d'accord, in the future plants. It is what we call the multiplexing. This is why, for example, we are able to rebuild some very long pathway. Not in plant cell, but in heterologous cells. I will show you that tomorrow, okay, by this technology. And you can implement more than 10 or 20 genes in just one cells by using this type of technology, but only 2 or 3 times, not 20 times. So it's quite interesting for this type of what we call synthetic biology, in fact, okay. And after, as you have seen, we eliminate all the selection markers. So at the end, the transgenic plants will have no acquired specific resistance to a specific antibiotic, which was the case with all the other type of plant transformation techniques. There is some limitation too, okay. Not only the best, but there is some, you need to know exactly the genome of the target species. So you need to know where you target, okay, your application of the silencing. So if you don't have the genome, you have to anticipate to sequence it. Not only the transcriptome is sufficient, you need to have all the genome. You can have some limitation to produce several knot-out mutants, in particular in plants. Off-target variable and difficult to control. If there is some possibility to crossover with another sequence, even if you have made all the analysis before, you can't eliminate the probability that they can have some off targets. It's quite really difficult to control and also to see. Or you have to sequence again all the genomes to know if there is not one but other type of modification. We are limited by the fact, I say to you, that not all the plants can be easily transformed. So if you have not possibility to do that, it's possible. And when you have transformed a cell, you have to regenerate the whole plant, okay? So you need to manage all the in vitro culture techniques. This is a very close linked. Each transformant is unique, is quite different from the others, because in fact, when you have the guide RNA, the sequence, the position of the systems could introduce the cut of the sequence, not exactly always at the same nucleotide. It can be, it can be 2, 3, or 4 nucleotides before or after. So means that it is not exactly the same modified plants. So this is why it is considered as unique. Okay, this is also depending after of the way to stimulate the repair system. We haven't the control of this. We use the natural property of the plant cell, okay, to repair the DNA damage, which is not with 100% on possibility. So means that we don't control this step until now. And this is why lots of works are currently due actually to see how we can manage this last step, to control also how to stimulate some specifically repair systems in order to control all the steps of the chain until, okay, the silencing of the gene. So you see where we are actually with this type of technology. There are, I have seen that quite all the laboratories that I know who are working on secondary metabolisms pathway have used now this type of technology, and I have tried to adapt this technology to the several plants on which they are working. As I say to you, with a different level of success. It is also the case in our labs. but it is now the last tool we have that could be of very efficiency, I think, in the few next year. And we are looking for the next new discovery, the next new Nobel Prize, okay, of perhaps another system that could be more efficient or more easy to manage for making this type of systems. So there is now some nice example that have been published of how this system have been used on medicinal plants, in particular with the aim to increase production of specialized metabolites. Here you can see some of them. Okay, that's I don't know. You have already, because some of them are the purpose of some achievement. Okay, and I just wanted to show you one example, at least, that have been published, you see, 2 years ago, 2021. It is the example of tropan alkaloids of Atropa belladonna, with an Italian accent, belladonna. Okay, you see that this tropan alkaloid pathway is quite now well known. I don't want to do the same explanation I've done before. And in particular, there is one molecule, an N molecule, that it is of very interest, is the scopolamine. But in fact, what it was found some years ago is that the two other precursors, so anisodamine and iosinamine, are also very interesting molecule by themselves. But what happens in the plant is that, in fact, the enzyme that is responsible of these two bioconversion is the same. It is what I already explained to you. Some may have some different catalytic activity. Here it is the case of the H6H that can make an hydroxylation in the first step and an epoxidation leading to scopolamine. So the idea is, if we want to accumulate the intermediates, we can try to silence, okay, this same enzyme, that in this case, we could have accumulation at least of this first precursor. So they have applied a CRISPR-Cas9 approach in order to do exactly what I showed you before with interference RNA. It was the same objective, but not the same strategy, methodology used. So here they wanted to modify this enzyme, okay, in order to accumulate normally, okay, this first precursor in the plants. So they have designed a guide RNA. In particular, this design was done exactly in the second exon of the sequence of the entire gene of the coding for the H6H. Okay. And after that, they have made the construction, the classical one now, with this RNA guide and also with the Cas9. They have put it in a specific plasmid of Agrobacterium, because they have used the technology of Agrobacterium infection to transform the one plants of Atropa belladonna. So this is what they have obtained after regeneration. They have about 7 plants, I think, something like that, or 11, not 7, 11 plants that will be able to grow. Okay. Here you see they have screened all the plants to see which are the lines that are really genetically modified. This was done with a selective marker. Okay. You see, is here, the selective marker. It had been used to screen by PCR approach which are the plants that have all the inserts. Okay. And after they have made some sequencing of the gene, okay, of the plant in order to see which lines have a CRISPR-Cas9 mutagenesis in the targeted enzyme. And in fact, only 4 plants will have this modification. Means that you have a lots of number of negative or false positive, okay, plants, transgenic plants. So you need to have all these step of screening. So at the end, they had 4 plants that will be able to normally have some H6H modified. So these plants have been well described according the content of tropan alkaloid. You can see here they have made some HPLC analysis of tropan content with different standards. They have also studied what happens in leaf and in roots because the pathway is not exactly the same in both of organs. And what you can observe here is that only 3 of the 4 plants, transgenic plants, were able to have some modification, okay, at metabolomic level. So this is the 3 lines, plants line. What you can see here, it's wild type, okay, belladonna. Then in wild type, they are able to produce in roots or in leaf both of the 3, okay, molecules from leucine to scopolamine, the last one. But you see that for all the 3 transgenic plants, only euacimine is accumulated, and no anisodamine and scopolamine are detected in the plants. So means that by having silenced or modified the gene encoding this particular enzyme H6H, they have completely, okay, eliminate possibility to produce scopolamine. Means that in this plant cell, and not in the plant cell, in the plant, okay, you can have a higher accumulation of this intermediate in particular. So you can cultivate this particular variety, okay, if you want to extract non-scopolamine, but this particular molecule. Problem is if you want the second one, what can happen? So this is another type of strategy that could be developed, not to silence the same enzymes, but to find another one, okay, that could have only one possibility of the first step of the conversion. So not the endogenous one, but another hydroxylase that could be able to recognize this, okay, substrate, dioscyamine, and also after to convert it to anisodamine, and that's all. So this is why you can prospect in other plants of this same family to know if they have some hydroxylase that it is very close to the H6H, but that could be more specific to just one substrate, but not on 2 substrates. We will see that after. I know that it is one of the strategies I have tried to develop, but I don't know the result today.
Let me have a question. So this second strategy, if the middle intermediate we want to overaccumulate, we are talking about overexpression now.
No, it's not. No, it's just to maintain H6H in a good manner. Okay. In order to have at least anisodamine, but after you can manage to put an H6H that it is not the endogenous one, because the endogenous one is able to recognize the 2 substrates, but to try to find this enzyme in another plant that could be able to recognize this first substrate, but not the others. So the strategy will be to substitute, okay, H6H by another enzyme. So means to silence it and to add after a new gene that will be able to produce the first step. Yes.
Yeah. Then expressing that another enzyme.
So, and you can use also this type of approaches to introduce these new probably genes, okay, that could be able to do only the first bioconversion, hydroxylation. But they are doing that. We have not the result now. And this is the second example, because one of the strategies that could be also developed to enhance production of metabolite, specialized metabolite in the plants is to act not directly on the metabolic pathway, but on the regulatory element, in particular transcription factor, and because it's a way to coordinately, okay, activate a branch pathway, for example, and that could be also a way to manage, okay, how to enhance just one branch instead of the others. So it was the case here for in this plant, Salvia miltioryza, that is able to produce two phenolic acid, salvianolic acid and rosmarinic acid, and both of them are very important molecules that are used for several applications. And what was the idea was, in fact, when we are looking at the metabolic pathway, now it's a well-known one. You have already seen lots of examples of metabolic pathway that start with phenylalanine and tyrosine until production of these first intermediates, leading to rosmarinic acid here, for example. And this rosmarinic acid can be after converted in salvinolonic acid. What happens in their strategy is that, in fact, there is lots of transcriptional factors that have been already characterized in this plant, in particular in this BASIP family transcriptional factor. Okay, it's a specific type of transcriptional factor that act in a specific manner with a specific mechanisms. I don't want to enter in these details, it's not necessary. And what happened is that there is one in particular that have been found in this plant that is sensitive to abscisic acid, to a particular external signal, okay, mediated in the plant by production of abscisic acid. So they wanted to see if they modify something at the level of this transcriptional factor, do the plant become more sensitive or less sensitive to acid abscisic, that lead at the end to phenolic acid compound production, because there is a link between both acid abscisic and phenolic acid. So by this way, they have obviously decided to use an CRISPR-Cas9 strategy. They have designed, okay, the cassette, including all the sequence S guide RNA for targeting specific this transcriptional factor. And also here you see selective markers. They have transformed some plants, okay, in order to regenerate some plants. In this case, in particular, they make the strategy to generate not the whole plant, but only hairy roots. It's a useful system also, this hairy root system. And okay, you see here they have several conditions to produce this hairy root. They have obtained several clones, so several lines of hairy root that have been after completely characterized. And what you can see here, that it is some of lines, in particular these 3 lines, are able to be deficient, okay, in this transcriptional factor. They have sequenced the localization and what type of modification have been introduced by this approach. You can see both of them have not exactly the same profile of modification. Here, there is 2 bars of insertion. Here, there is elimination, deletion of a part of the sequence during the repair systems. Okay, and here there is some mutation. So both of these 3 lines are able to not express specifically this ZIP transcription factor in this paper also, they have overexpress, okay, this transcription factor in order to compare overexpression and silencing of the transcriptional factor. And what is the last result they obtained is quite nice. Here you have phenolic analysis with two rosmarinic acid and also salvianolinic acid. Here are the total contents on phenolic acids. You see here in blue, it is the three silenced lines by CRISPR-Cas9 approach. Here in the middle is a control, non-transformed plants, and the three last bar, okay, correspond to overexpression of the transcriptional factor. You can see here that when you silence, okay, this particular transcriptional factor, you act mainly on the total phenolic contents, because compare here to the control, you have more phenolic compounds when this particular transcriptional factor is silenced compared to when it is overexpressed, where you have here really less total contents. And after, if you focused particularly on these two types of metabolites, you can see that both of them are very sensitive to the presence or the absence, okay, of this transcriptional factor. When this transcriptional factor is silenced, okay, is absent, you have a higher amount of these two compounds compared with the plant that have been selected for overexpressing this transcriptional factor. And after that, they have also looked all the genes involved in this metabolic pathway to know what are the genes targeted, in fact, by it is 1, 2, 3, or more than one gene. And what was really interesting, it is only PAL genes seems to be really influenced by the presence or the absence of this transcriptional factor, because when it is silenced, the transcriptional level of the PAL, for example, is very high, which is the entrance in the metabolic pathway. While in plants that overexpress this transcriptional factor, the level of the PAL transcription is very low, and it is okay, well corresponding to the profile we have observed at the phenolic compounds levels. But what was interesting is that if you look at the other enzymes that are involved in the rest of in the following sequence of the metabolic pathway, there is not so evident, okay, influence of the presence or the absence of the transcriptional factor. So means that only acting on this first enzyme by this particular transcriptional factor, you may modify completely the metabolite profile of your plant. So this is also interesting to see how we can manage not the enzyme by itself. They are all present because they are not necessary to produce the metabolite at the firing point, but you can modulate some activity of some of them, okay, by modulation of their transcription level. And it was interesting because it was one of an example in which a transcriptional factor is not able to stimulate, okay, the production of metabolic, specialized metabolites, but at the contrary, it can be used to decrease, okay, their production. But it is not the only one in the cell. It acts with several other type of transcriptional factor. And what you have to take in mind is that it is a very nice network because some of them influence the others. And in fact, it is not so easy. But when you have a so strong one, that here you can see that when you modified its expression, you may have a very big consequence on metabolic content in the plant. That could be a very nice tool also to create new plants that will be able to have more this type of metabolite than the others. Okay. So here it's just for you. You will see that on my slide. This is example of several medicinal plants that have been modified by this technology and on which they have produced, you see, many summary root, but also sometimes the tissue culture or also plants. To this moment, it's more easier to manage with a specific organ culture or tissue culture in vitro to see the effect of this modification on plant metabolite. Do I have 5 minutes more or not? It is I have 5 or 6 more. It's a way to summarize, to conclude.
Already we are 15 minutes up.
Okay. It's up to me. Because I have to explain it just a way to summarize, to make you some theoretical view of what are the strategies that could be 5 or perhaps 10 minutes at maximum, depends of you. So just to summarize, what are the theoretical strategies for metabolic engineering in plant cells? So here you have a classical pathway, okay, that start from primary metabolites, and you have the end product you want. And this is the regulator that can act, okay, such as a transcription factor. Or the strategy to modify, to modulate, okay, the production of metabolite in these cells, or you can reduce degradation of the last molecule that makes some influence in the steps that are before production of this end molecule. You may have also increased expression, you have seen that, of one or more than one enzyme of this metabolic pathway that can modify the level of one or all the intermediates of this metabolic pathway. You can also reduce what happens sometimes. It was what we call negative feedback, because sometimes when you have a long chain like that, one of the enzymes, for example, here or here, this enzyme A, for example, may be sensitive to an intermediate molecule of the pathway. And when I say sensitive, it means it can be an inhibitor of this protein activity. It's a way to auto-regulate the flux of the metabolite production by the cell itself. So if you identify that, you need to find a way, okay, to avoid this sensitivity of the enzyme A for this particular intermediates. A way is to find a new enzyme equivalent to this one that will be not sensitive to this one, okay? But it is always occurring in several metabolic pathways. What happens also is that to reduce the competing flux branch, d'accord, that use the intermediates, and that could lead to the decrease of the production of the end final product. You can have also some action on the regulator, such as the transcriptional factor. You can increase or decrease. We have seen at least an example of increase, okay? And you can also control what happens as compartmentalization of the compounds. We have seen already that the pathway is organized in different organelles, so you need to know exactly where you want to produce the different activities. And the last one could be the conversion of new product of interest. You can add, okay, you can stimulate some enzymes that are not normally stimulated that could be taking charge your last, okay, metabolite in order to produce new one. So this is all the strategy you can manage, okay, in order to modify the final composition of your metabolite, specialized metabolite in the plants. You can combine also some of these strategies together. So you see, it's a very open field, okay, to do what we want to do in order to modify this metabolomic profile. So overexpression is a good way, okay, of a gene, but you need to know that in fact, usually there is modest effect. Sometimes I show you a good one, but it's quite rare. because in fact, the metabolic flux regulation is usually shared by several enzymes. So by this way, if you act only on one, it is not sufficient to have a real impact on the flux. There is some success stories. Here, for example, for production of precursor of all terpenes, what was interesting is that when you overexpress the first one, there is quite no effect. While when you overexpress the second one, you can enhance by 18%, for example, in essential oil, the production of some terpenes. And in lavender, it was in mint. In lavender, when you overexpress, in this case, the first one, you have an increase of 74% of some of this compound in the essential oil. You see, there is no rule. No rule. It's completely dependent of the plants. But in all the plants, it is exactly the same pathway. Means that there is some other natural influence that you don't know, that also be take in charge and that in count, okay, if you want to modify the metabolic production. Concerning the feedback, I say to use the negative feedback that can be also do. You can dysregulate these things for avoiding the competitive pathway. It was the case, for example, when they wanted to increase artemisinin production. Some of you have already shown something like that. By acting, for example, on this specific enzyme, squalene synthase. And when they have silenced, for example, this squalene synthase, they have decreased the sterol production and they have increased the artemisinin production. What was the aim of this type of strategy, for example? I don't want to show you the detail of the paper, just the result to have an overview. Sometimes it's also interesting because you can do exactly the same over expression of an enzyme, but in different plants, and you can lead to the production of different type of metabolites. It was the case here, or by acting an overexpression of this linalool synthase, for example, and depending of the plant, you have not exactly the same final product that it is enhanced. It was also the case from the same precursor, we see, always the same. If you overexpress this particular bifunctional linalool nerodiol synthase, you have also different type of metabolite that could be produced depending of the plants, okay, on which you act. Means that there is no rule. Even if you have the common part of the pathway, you can have several different final pathway that can be sensitive to overexpression of this type of gene. And my last one concern transcription factor. I just want to you that it is perhaps one of the most effective strategy to modify global metabolic flux. Just the example of my favorite one, okay? No, I have put one on another flavonoid, okay? You have here a synthetic pathway of flavonoids and particularly anthocyan production. What it is interesting here for me is that the name of the different transcriptional factors that have been identified and linked with modulation of this metabolic pathway. And what it is shown here, it is when they overexpress some of specific gene. Here, for example, MIB, here ROST, and this one was indigo, I don't know where it is, okay? But in fact, they act on the level expression of several enzymes that are linked to anthocyanin production. And when they make some measurement of metabolite, it's here, for example, chlorogenic acid, here are flavonols, and here are anthocyanin. You can see that some of transcriptional factors are able to enhance, okay, compared to the wild type for a high amount, okay, some of specific metabolites. This is exactly the contrary of what I have shown you with my previous example. And what I say, sorry, I forget it. I wanted to show you what happened with Incataranthus roseus because it's very nice.
It's like
No, I don't know. I have.
can scroll down and check.
No. I'm sure. Sorry. So we can make the break. If I recover my two slides, I will show you. In case of, it's not important. Okay. Thanks for your attention.